Today we'll be looking at, or we'll be doing an introductory video for typeGEMs V2, V short for version 2. So typeGEMs V2 comes in a MOGUT for you to work with in the Essential Graphics panel. And once you've installed it, drag it to your timeline. I'm going to put it on V3. Let's drag it here. Okay, so that's our MOGUT. And then let's go to Edit. And first thing you'll want to do is obviously change the text, and that comes in the appearance section. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections, starting with appearance. This is where you type in your text. Alrighty, set colors, position it in your program monitor. You can rotate it, set opacity levels. Let's zoom in a little bit. We want to adjust tracking. You can punch in a number or use the slider. Alrighty. And line height, you can input up to 5 lines, so let's do 3 lines. And you can use line height to either squeeze or stretch the leading. Alrighty. Let's get rid of the additional lines and stick to a single line. So that's all under appearance, and it's pretty easy. You've got text properties. You can pick a font, change a font. We like that. I don't, so I'm going to undo. And font options are there. So it's pretty straightforward for appearance. Then you've got gradient effects. 0 for no gradient. 1 for gradient style A, 2 for gradient style B. And gradient picks up the first color, which is defined here under appearance, and second color is defined here in the gradient section. Alrighty, so that's gradient style gradient style A, when you select 1 for gradient style, which is 1 right now, so I'm just drag this to 2. This is the second gradient style, and you can invert gradient looks here. And then you've got things like saturation, brightness, stuff like that. Okay, and all these will animate on, obviously. Now what's cool about typeGEMs amongst a lot of things is the presets. Okay, so we're about done with a quick introduction to gradients. Lots of other stuff you can do over here. Shifting your gradients. Yeah. We'll do more in-depth stuff later. And then auto tracking. Default is 35 and tracks from the middle based on the tracking anchor. Alright, you can track from first character on the left. Let's set this to 1/4 so we get faster previews. As you can see, the tracking is happening, and now it's anchored to the first character on the left, and that's what tracking anchor does when it's set to 0. Come on. There we go. Right, set it to 100. And now the tracking anchor will be anchored to the right. That means everything gets pushed to the left. Right? So default is 50, and tracking strength is 35. That's how fast the text characters get pushed from the tracking anchor point. Right now it's 50, so it's getting pushed from the middle. Alright. And auto tracking by default it's switched on. So you get a nice cinematic look right off the bat. There you go. I'm going to switch off gradient. Set this 0. So 0, no gradient. And then we get to the presets. So as I mentioned earlier, typeGEMs V2 ships with 40 presets. Before we go there, let's deal with these guys here. So right now it's starting to animate from left now. I'm going to change the text color to make it easier to see what's happening. So animate from left, set your text selection to 1. If you want to animate from right, set text selection to 2. And what do I mean by left and right? That's your text characters, not the position here. So as you can see, it's starting from the left. So the first character that appears when we're set to animate from left is this guy. W comes on first. Yeah, I'm gonna set this to number 2. So now we'll animate from right. So the text character on the right animates in first. Okay, it's nice for lower thirds when you need to have text coming out from either the left or the right. Set this back to 0. You can also animate by words instead of the default, which is per character animating in. Let's play this back. So it's one character at a time. Let's make it shorter. We get faster previews. Right, and then this is switched off. Okay. And then it's modular, so you can mix and match your text selections and your animate by word setting. Right, so we'll go by word now. Let's do a quick preview. You know what, this guy is on. Let me switch this off and disable it. Now let's do a preview. So as I said, typeGEMs comes as a moget for use in the essential graphics panel in Adobe Premiere and also in Adobe After Effects. So it's essentially 2 programs in one here, which is pretty cool. What is that? It's not nice. Never mind. Okay. So that covers these 2 guys. Now let's go to the animation preset. So for the presets, I'm obviously not going to look at all of them. Just do a quick rundown. My YouTube channel, I've got a YouTube video showing you the favorites, stuff that I kind of like, which are quick and easy to use. Well, all presets are quick and easy to use, but for this, the reason why they're my favorites is because they look nice, look decent, and you will probably find lots of uses for them in a lot of different projects. Alright, so let's just a quick look at the a few of the 40 presets that ship with typeGEMs V2. Alright, now to select a preset, just drag the select preset slider. Alright, and a whole bunch of properties linked to that preset number, so you get consistent results. So this is preset 15. That's what it looks like. To create your own presets, select preset number anywhere between 41 up to 100. Now, once you set this to 41, you can start messing up with the ease in and ease out slider values. Now, if you've ever used the After Effects text tool, one of the biggest issues is easing out and easing in. It's a huge problem, especially when you're changing text selections and animating by word and stuff like that. So I've made it really easy, very intuitive. These two features, these two properties, the ease out and the ease in, they work together. So what's happening with typeGEMs is you've got an animate in or a transition in effect happening at the start. So there are two parts to it, your text animation, and easing out, how slow or how gradual or how quick your text starts, and when it ends, how quick or how smooth it ends. Now I'm gonna go to animation properties. In this section, these are the different properties that you can animate on a per character or per word basis. This is very similar to the setup in the After Effects text engine, and obviously typeGEMs is based on the Adobe After Effects text engine. So I've set up 9 properties that can be animated. There are 10 actually properties here, but tracking anchor is not something which is animated. It is there to allow you to set the tracking anchor for your text. It doesn't animate, but the other 9 do allow you to animate. So the whole gist of typeGEMs is again, start off with the appearance, what your text looks like, where it's going to be placed. Decide if you want a gradient, decide if you want a tracking anchor, and then work your way down from the top, and then once you reach here, decide if you want to animate from the left, which is the first character, or from the right, which is your last character. Decide if you want to animate by word, and then decide if you want to use a preset, a default preset, one of the 40 built-in or default presets. And then if you want to create your own presets, or what I call pseudo presets, select or set a number between 41 to 100 for the select preset property. So I'm going to set position to -200. Leaving everything else at its default. So what's going to happen is text is going to be animating in. So I'm going to set text selection to come in from the left. So as you can see, text characters will begin 200 pixels from the right of where you had placed them when you started off with your appearance settings. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick preview. So text characters will slide in 200 pixels from the right. If I set this to 0 and set Y to 200, what's going to happen is text characters will begin 200 pixels below and slide their way in to the position or to the setting that was set in the appearance group. See that? And as you can see, it's really smooth, and that's because ease in is set to 100, and the ease out is also very smooth, set to 0. Now let's set ease in to 0, and you get a very different easing in, which is very harsh, obviously. So maybe let's set this to 50. Let's do a quick RAM preview. So the gist of typeGEMs is you've essentially got the bulk of the Adobe After Effects type engine in Adobe Premiere, and this is like bloody cool, yeah. Alrighty. So most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the time, but setting it to 100 is pretty cool or pretty nice to get you what you want. Let's set this something like this. Okay, let's preview that. Nice, eh? And look at the auto tracking at play here. Okay, it's pretty nice. Of course, you can switch it off, right, in the auto tracking section. Okay, just disable it. Well, one good tip, yeah, don't have too many groups that are expanded. Expanded meaning you can see all the contents within each of the group, because it gets really messy, obviously. So collapse means you closing up the group or subgroup, and expand, that means you open up. So try not to have too many expanded groups or subgroups to make the interface a lot easier to look at. Alrighty, so that was pretty easy using our animation presets. I'm gonna set Y back to 0 for position, and I'm gonna set position now to -200. So what's gonna happen is text is gonna slide in 200 pixels from the left relative to where I had set my text characters based on the settings in the appearance group. Yeah. So text characters will be sliding in 200 pixels from the left. I'm gonna add some blur. Blur, you've got X blur along the x-axis, and then Y blur along the y-axis. So in this case, I'm going to do just Y. Not too high, maybe about there. 124, and then tracking, I'm going to add a bit of tracking. Now this tracking is obviously different from auto tracking, yeah, right? So this tracking is just what happens during the transition stage, yeah, going from start of the transition to the end of the transition. Auto tracking takes place throughout the entire duration of your text appearance on screen, and in Premiere it's 12 seconds long for each typeGEMs V2 layer. If you need it to be shorter, just trim it. You can use time remap to mess about with timings. In After Effects, it's a lot easier to change the duration. We'll do After Effects in another tutorial. Okay, so I've changed the blur and tracking. I'm going to track from the left, so I'm going to set tracking anchor to 0. So text is going to slide in. It's going to track. Well, when it starts, it tracks from the left, but remember, auto tracking is currently tracking from the center because tracking anchor is 0. Now, the PDF documentation covers tracking anchor very easily. Essentially, there are 3 points that you will most often use, and that is 0. That means you track from the left, as I've mentioned earlier. 100, track or anchor to the right, and then at 50, tracking will be anchored at the middle. In this case, even for auto tracking, I want it to anchor at the left. So I'm going to set tracking anchor to 0. Again, after you've used something in a group, it's a good idea to tool it back up so things look nice and not too cluttered and confusing. Alrighty, there you go. Now let's do a preview. Right, there you go. Okay, so it looks pretty nice, and this is all done in Adobe Premiere Pro, not Adobe After Effects, mind you. So this is quite brilliant, isn't it? All right, so that's that. Now, if you need, okay, let's look at something else. Let's go further down. Let's try and cover this and this also here. So I'm going to set tracking back to 0. Tracking anchor. I'm just setting everything back to its default for now. Unfortunately, there's no reset button here. So I'm going to leave the preset to 41 also. It's a good idea to change the preset number when you're working on a new text effect, yeah? So we're going to look at inertial bounce next. I'm going to set Y to 150. And what inertial bounce does, okay, this is the default without inertial bounce. I've not enabled yet. We've seen this before, yeah? Just your text sliding up, one character at a time. Alright, so let's enable inertial bounce. Amplitude is the strength of the bounce. Frequency, how many bounces, decay strength, 3. Again, all these properties are covered in, I would like to think, sufficient detail in the documentation. So let's let it run for now and see what happens. Holy shit. Okay, so amplitude is way too high. I'm gonna let you see this a little bit. Let's zoom out, yeah. So amplitude is at 347. This is the ending position. As you can see, when it comes in at 347, it's bloody high, yeah? So I'm going to set this to 50. Yep, so that sets the amplitude, sets the strength of the bounce. Yeah. Right now it's 50, a bit too low. Let's go to 65. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, see that. Right, so that's nice, eh? Can add more bounces. There, trim this there, and I'm gonna add a fade out. So let's see this now. Okay, and let's do a quick render. Ready? So that's that. I'm gonna do something that looks a bit nicer. Let's leave that there. I'm gonna set the K strength to something very high. Let's try 16. I'm gonna have my text come in from way up top. I'm gonna move my cursor somewhere in the middle here so I can see what's happening in the transition in stage. So Y, I'm gonna set it to a huge negative value. So it's gonna come in from the top. X scale, I'm gonna set to something like that. Set Y scale to 0. And for amplitude, I'm gonna set this to about 39. Let's see this. All right, let's zoom in to get a clearer, closer look. Go full screen. Zoom in. Let's render this. No, it doesn't render at full screen. Let's see this. Alright, so let's end this. Okay. It's that. Once you're done, if you don't like the final position, you can always go back to appearance, and maybe you may decide to move it a bit to the left. Maybe down a little bit. Yeah. And then let's render this. So that's initial bounce. Next, we're going to look at the random selection. Now, when initial bounce is switched on, you look at the comment here, yeah? Initial bounce disable select from right, and also random selection. Select from right, remember it's this guy here, text selection, yeah? Or animate from right. So I'm going to switch this off so that we can see what the random selection looks like. Now, when it's not enabled, as you know, it's going to come in from based on the text selection here. So it says from left. So I'm going to enable random selection. What it means is text is going to come in randomly instead of from the left or from the right. And again, at any point in time, you can just come in here. If you decide to animate using another or add in more properties, in this case I'm going to add 50 for X blur and 50 for Y blur. Alright, so that's pretty cool, yeah? Again, what's amazing is everything is done in Adobe Premiere Pro. Alrighty? Don't have to go to Adobe After Effects to do a lot of this type of text animations, normal dynamic linking issues and things like that. Everything is native in Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, so that's that. Oh, sorry, you've got YakPad. You can type in make notes. If you're going to reuse your instance of this Morgan, which I'll cover in another tutorial. Essentially, YakPad's for you to type in notes for yourself or for someone who may be using this text preset further down the road. So that's actually that for a quick introduction into typeGEMs V2. Alright, so it's definitely the most powerful text preset or Morgan out there for Adobe Premiere Pro. For Adobe After Effects, we've got typeGEMs V1 and also typeGEMs V2. typeGEMs V2 has fewer features, but it's a lot faster. Right, so you've got both options available. Anyway, so that's that for now. Look forward to doing more tutorials. Hope you like the product and buy it. Alright, so cheers, bye bye.